Okay, Jared Borkowski, Sound Guitar Lessons, soundguitarlessons.com in Seattle. Hi.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So after we have said that intro, um, it's always weird doing that intro because we'd been talking before and now we're apparently first starting to talk, but there you go.
No
Um,
worries.
so the way these things usually start is I ask you how you started playing.
Sure. Yeah, I started playing probably in a very typical kind of guitar player variety where I was just during that kind of preteen age where like you start to get your own taste for things and music starts to seem cool. I mean, I was never really music wasn't really something on my radar as a kid until I was about 11 years old when like, and this is in the 90s when grunge was like such a huge thing and like Green Day was, blowing
And
up
you
and
live in
stuff like that.
Seattle.
And I live in Seattle. And so yeah, so there that era in Seattle was, yeah, grunge was a big thing. And I just hooked into that. I was into the just of course there's like kind of an image and a vibe, of getting into any pop culture, especially like a music movement like that. But yeah, it's just an unbelievable feeling and an escape. I mean, the feeling that I got from discovering my own taste in music. I mean, I was a kid, but prior to that, I was, the only music was like, oh, Weird Al songs are, funny and stuff like that. But getting into these bands, and I was into everything. I was listening to like MC Hammer and stuff like that. So at around age 11, I just got into um, listening to music and just totally escaping in it. And the feeling that I got from that is still just the most magical memory for me. And I would say that every day when I play music, I'm kind of chasing what I expect. I'm sure that's common for a lot of people, but I'm kind of like after that
And
that
you're listening to and you're listening to what? You're listening to tapes, you're listening to the radio.
tapes, tapes, yeah, and CDs. So tapes, a lot of tapes and CDs, and then and I was always very creative. Like prior to music, I did a lot of drawing and doodling and writing poetry. I would like write poetry in this kind of in the style of Shel Silverstein, or like, I was very always creative. And so when I got into just that music escape and listening to tapes and CDs and stuff like that, I also had like little tape recorders. So I would start singing little songs and making things up and stuff like that. And then guitar was the big thing because of the rock and grunge era. So my uncle had a guitar that he was like, hey, I bought this, I never learned it, you can have this. It was a flying V, like a white flying V guitar, like total 80s like hairband rock star guitar, and you can't even sit with it without it like
Right.
sliding off your knee. And it was just funny. So that was my first guitar, and I just like dived in and just started like making things up. And I had a
It makes
assistant
sense to you
teacher.
right away, or
It's really interesting. I like the kinesthetic, like physical part of it did. And the I always I was like into gymnastics, and I juggled and rode the unicycle. Like as a kid, I was doing a lot of like physical kind of athletic things. So like getting into like physical technique of it and like strumming and like feeling a beat like that and like getting chord shapes down, that I feel like I was just in it right away. And I had a couple people show me a couple things like, oh, check out, like we all do, here's a couple of chords or whatever. Um, as far as the like music kind of musical brain part, I didn't really have that. And that's always been and still is a big struggle for me. I ended up um going to music school much later and getting into the musicianship classes like ear training and stuff like that. I was like, whoa, no one ever told me about this. I was so kind of just physical, like playing and just feeling the feelings and not really tracking, not really hearing the pitches in my head so much. So stuff I had to really work on. But to go back to the kind of linear story of it, all I wanted to do was make up my own stuff. So I just started writing songs, playing, years of just playing and making up songs without, I even actively felt like I didn't want to learn anybody else's music for a long time. But I did start taking guitar lessons, and I just wanted to play as much music as possible. So I got into like middle school jazz band, and, you know, um, was a
so this
horrible,
is this is your
yeah,
first instrument, guitar?
yeah,
You
Yeah.
didn't play like trumpet or something in the band before. It was just like bam,
You know,
flying
there
V
there
guitar.
was, yeah, there was like the option to like fourth grade elementary school, do you want to play something? And I chose saxophone and did it for like one day, and I was like, and I just didn't do it anymore after that. So it's funny,
Gotcha.
as an adult, I'm so different than when I was a kid. I was just willy-nilly, like I was a horrible student. I wasn't disciplined any. It's typical of, a lot of kids, but I really didn't practice. I really didn't, do it. Nowadays I'm very kind of structured and practice and all of that, kind of making up for how sloppy I was back then. But my creativity was just driving me. So I would just, I did take guitar lessons, and everything I learned, I would just, compose and write something. And then eventually that turned into finding a few friends, and we started a band. We had that band for like 10 years and just played a bunch around the city, played some of the festivals around here, and like do shows and gigs, and got a little bit of a following, did some like recordings and stuff like that. And that was just my whole identity, because we were in high school when we broke up and everyone kind of went off their separate ways. I was like, well, what the hell am I going to do now? So I looked into, well, if I'm going to go to college, I just want to do music, and University of Washington is right in the neighborhood here. And I looked into it, and they said, you have to, if you want to do music here as a guitarist, you have to learn classical guitar. So I was like, all right. So I got a classical guitar, started practicing. That was my first time of like, okay, I'm going to actually practice, actually be studious, actually be, and I took it super seriously, and auditioned, and thankfully got in. And then from there, it's been more of a kind of balanced with the academic kind of element in my musicianship. And from there, as far as teaching goes, it's just such a natural path. If someone's studying music, I mean, teaching is it's a way to make some money. It's a way to help people and connect with them, and it's just so many people want to learn music. It's such a amazing opportunity to give back and make a living doing it. Yeah.
Was it weird to go? I want to return to that, but was it
Yeah.
weird to go and start like from self-taught flying V guitar, uh, making up your own stuff to uh, big wide neck classical guitar, learning what is like the same mechanics or the same kind of like game board, but a very different uh, plan of attack. Like, was that a weird thing, or was it a natural leap? Were there things that when you started um, essentially like reading music and playing that way, that you kind of flash back to your original flying V days and be like, oh, that would like talk to me about that transition.
um, Reading music was incredibly challenging to start doing. Definitely the classical guitar is an awkward, just it feels like a completely different instrument compared to an electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. It's so different. The string, the distance of the strings, the feeling, the finger style technique. However, I mean, it's a great question. By the time I decided to go that route, I was just simply so determined that my mindset was completely different than before. I wasn't expecting it to be what music was to me before that, which was that it's just this kind of anything goes expression of myself. I don't really care if someone else likes it or not. It was like so authentic, and still, I mean, my life goal is to get back to that authenticity. And now I have all these other things I fell in love with. I fell in love with classical guitar and jazz guitar, and so I'm juggling all of those things at this point, and just essentially trying to find my voice. But I'd say I was just on such a mission to gain my musicianship, and kind of catch up for lost time in a way, because I never was studious before that. I just really fully shifted. So yeah, it was hard and it was strange and it was different, but I was I changed along with it. I changed to in the way I needed to change to adopt the habits that I needed to make that happen. And I will say that it also was a absolute flood of emotions in a positive way, because I was now studying, playing music written by composers, and learning, and I was starting to teach around that time too, where that's when I started playing a lot of other people's music, because people would come wanting to play songs. So I'd figure it out off the recording, teach it to them. So I was getting exposed to the value of the amazing like depth and world of oh yeah, why am I not playing other people's, why am I not studying and absorbing as much music as I possibly can? Still my main kind of identity being this kind of wanting to just be creative, but realizing, ooh, if I can speak this language in these various ways and play music other people wrote, especially masters throughout history, it's going to influence my creativity. It's going to influence just my ability to express myself in a deeper way, in a more profound way.
That is
So
why I feel like that's true with almost everything. Like there's a lot of things where, and I have I have this feeling if I'm doing maybe some visual design work or other things, like you
yeah,
want to try to do everything, you want to have everything come, you kind of want to guard yourself against other people's ideas almost. Just like, nope, I don't want to see it, don't want to see it. I want to make sure this is an original idea, da 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 da. And then once in a while you'll poke your head up and look around at how other people have seen the same, tried to express the same thing, solve the same problem, do this other thing. And then, yeah, every so often you forget that other people have ideas. You know what I mean? Like it's like you,
yeah,
and I feel like it's not true in music or just true in music or visual design or software or anything really. Like there's always that kind of ping pong between, well, if you're only looking outward, you're not really creating anything new. But if you're only looking inward, like you're kind of uh, cheating yourself of, you
yeah,
know, hundreds of years of uh, ideas like that
yeah.
you have access to. It's pretty wild.
And anything you come up with is kind of like reinventing the wheel, right? Like you'll
Yeah.
think it's this amazing thing and realize, oh, this is nothing compared to what's out there. So yeah, it is this balance of can't be all the way on one side, can't be all the way on the other side, just like you said. Yeah, totally true.
Talk to me about your own like performing, composing during this time, like while you're at, you said it's University of Washington,
Yeah.
while you're in school, like and your band had broken up, like are you thinking of, well, I'm gonna make my, I'm gonna be a solo person, play my own shows, or I'm gonna try to find another band, or I'm gonna take a break for a while, like what's your kind of vibe at that time?
Kind of all of them. My top priority was to again just play this guy. Like I'm getting into music school where like okay, classical guitar department, they had a jazz department. I got into the jazz department. I was doing both of these things then. I was majoring in jazz and classical guitar, and I just, full on imposter syndrome, felt like I don't belong here. I'm playing with people who started playing classical guitar when they were 6 years old,
Mm.
and stuff like that, and playing with these jazz musicians who like really were the jazz kids, in where they're like doing all the festivals in middle school and high school, and just like act, and to me I was always exposed to, whenever I was exposed to that stuff, I was just taking it and just kind of doing my own creative thing. So I think just musicianship wise, I was so triggered by the environment I was in. I was like, I can't afford not to practice as much as possible. I got into that, just like practice, 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 practice. And I love practicing. I still love practicing. And my biggest challenge today is how do I balance, the practicing, musicianship, kind of repertoire, all this stuff with kind of the creative stuff that I still want to do as well. But to answer your question about the creative aspect being a part of that, I simply can't. I can't contain it. So it always, especially as I learn more stuff, as I practiced, learning Bach suites and stuff. I mean, just anything I played, I would start to be creative with it, and I would just record the ideas and have just this huge archive of kind of creative stuff. Then definitely looking to start a band and also doing solo stuff as well, and doing a lot of composing in school. So I would bring in original stuff to like jazz ensemble class or something like that, or try to compose a classical piece for myself with the technique I learned or something like that. Again, all because I kind of couldn't stop it. If I could stop it, I probably would have put it on hold, because I was more concerned about just needing to play catch up musicianship wise.
Yeah.
But after kind of feeling like I did catch up a little bit, I started a band called Operation ID in school, and we were, the department we had in the jazz department was like very free improvisation focused, very kind of experimental, avant-garde, free improvisation, and that band was super super fun, super unique. We were basically like improvisation oriented. It was basically like a prog rock, experimental jazz fusion kind of thing, just like all over the map, weirdness, whatever. We didn't care. We just did whatever we wanted. It was extremely cathartic and creative. And we played a bunch of shows and it did a lot around the city. So that band was a huge creative outlet. And then I started doing a lot of recording too, and kind of getting into how can I kind of keep my songwriting going and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's just always been a trying to spin a bunch of plates at once
Yeah.
kind of journey for me. Yeah, which I mean, I know it's that way for a lot of people.
And it seems like it continues to be for you, like just checking out all the stuff you're doing. Like there's not one thing I imagine that you're spending your time with. Um,
Yeah, it's challenging. With, I mean, even with the YouTube channel, we talked about this before recording,
yeah,
but you know, my main central concern with it is to just be consistent with posting videos, which is so important for me, because if I thought if it was any other thing, I would just freeze. You know, I would just wait. I'd think if I either thought it had to be the best thing, or if I had to get things figured out before doing it. 2 years would go by and I wouldn't post anything, which is like, you know, um, is kind of how I think a lot of us operate. And so just jumping in and forcing myself to do it. That being said, I'm I'm struggling right now with kind of like what's my, who am I even teaching? You know, I'm like doing my best with every lesson, but because I'm interested in so many things, it's kind of like going all these different directions, which I think is a good process to go through. So I don't, you know, it's just where I'm at now, and thinking what's the, you know, what's the voice I want to have
I
in that
think
department. So
I feel like I gotta say though, like just checking out some of your stuff, like the focus was one of the things that impressed me so much. Like I don't
ah
know, like your on your Instagram page, how you have like all the different groups of things, and um, I like how you have the curated collections of stuff on your YouTube page. Like it seems like you're at least asking the questions. It doesn't seem at all scattered from my perspective. But that kind of like brings up another point, which is like, doesn't it stress you out having to think like, should I be focusing? Like I happen to notice that like your YouTube page is updated super regularly, but and I'm the worst guilty person of this. I'm terrible at social media and trying to be better and learning what to do and
mm-hmm.
whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it seems like you've kind of chosen YouTube as like the thing, and then the other ones are kind of like. Can you talk a little bit about your thought process, why you're hard on YouTube, and why does it stress you out like having to deal with all of these different social platforms? Do you think they're important? How do they fit into your, I guess, marketing for your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely marketing. I mean, people don't like that word, but it is what it is. And
Yeah,
if you don't like the word, then it's just simply how do you get people to know about what you're doing who didn't know it before? That's all it is.
right.
And perfectly reasonable no matter what you're doing in the world, right? So you don't have to call it marketing. I'm just, you know, saying that for those out there that, you know, especially artists feel weird about saying marketing. It's like, whatever, you can call it whatever you want, but it's trying to help people who might be interested in what you're doing know about you who didn't know about you before. But yeah, I would say yes, I think about it and have thought about it a lot. I do still. I enjoy the challenge of this, of the kind of like kind of getting stuff out there and exposure and whatnot. Um, it stresses me out, but not in the way that I think you're asking about, because I
Sure.
have I have a pretty solid kind of strategy that I feel like is what it excites me about the, you know, marketing, if we want to call it that, and or just putting stuff out there, um, and the thing that stresses me out is getting to having the time to do it the way that I want to do it. So like for me, the future of that means that I'll want to be, I won't be able to do kind of the vision that I actually have for it unless I get help, you know, unless I get like a team of people to help with me, help me do that. But as far as YouTube versus other things goes, super intentional, because YouTube is um, it, like right now I am focusing on YouTube, and then I'm using whatever else, if I'm using it at all, just to update and point to, hey, I put up a lesson. You know, if you
Gotcha.
like Instagram right now, at least I'm only putting up once a week. Today I posted a lesson, just so you know. I know that that's not going to grow my Instagram account, but I don't really care that much about the Instagram account. The main reason is that on YouTube, I'm getting kind of ranked in the search engine for videos I made 2 years ago. And on Instagram, there's no chance of that happening. It's just not as much leverage, right? And also I like going deep. I like kind of more long form content in general. I like long form podcast. But I'm trying to think of, what's actually going to make an impact. I think Instagram is very surface. And a lot of platforms are very kind of surface level and or not long lasting.
That is such a good
So
point about the other platforms being very treadmilly, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't.
Whereas
They're
you've got a
they're not the
library
same
on
thing.
your YouTube channel. Sorry to talk over you. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, no, no. I'm glad that you agree too. It I see them as completely different platforms. I know people think of them as like, oh, what social media you're going to use? Are you going to use YouTube? Are you going to use Instagram? I see them as actually totally different things. So because one is like the YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. People go to it to search for things. And it's just, it's something that, if you go search for something, you might find a video that's useful for you that someone posted 6 years ago. Again, not going to happen on Instagram. At the same time, like I mean, I like the idea. I put out some like short, reel clips, video clips. I did some TikTok stuff. I experimented with that a while ago and got some good results with it that I'm excited about. It's just I don't have the time to keep doing that again without maybe having some help of someone who can cut up little clips of the videos, because the videos have the videos I'm making, I think, have a lot of good things in them that could be cut up into little Instagram clips and stuff like that. That's the vision that I have for for using that platform, as opposed to making something exclusively for that platform. So not only is it kind of long term just the better platform and just the more secure kind of solid platform to use, also I have just ways that I actually create the content to try to make sure it's something that people are searching for. But what I was saying about, oh, I forgot my train of thought. But
About a
anyway,
library, like you know what
yeah.
actually what you when you were saying kind of triggered me. I don't know if you there was like a Mr. Rogers moment like 5 years ago when there were
Mhm.
all these different things about Mr. Rogers, and one of the things that I remember from that time was his intention for that show was always for it to be a library, but
Mhm.
essentially he intentionally didn't go back over and cover concepts that he'd covered in the past, because his intention was always to create like this time capsule where it's like, okay,
Mhm.
we're doing a week about grief. Now we have a week about grief, and it
Yeah.
for it to be like run in the future, like, okay, we're doing a
Mhm.
week about brushing your teeth, whatever. That brushing your teeth is not a very Mr. Rogers topic. Like,
You
how do you
probably did
feel
it. Yeah.
about
Yeah.
brushing your teeth is
Right.
maybe like
Yeah.
more. um
How do you feel about
or
hygiene?
like
Yeah.
feeling scared about going to the dentist or something like
Sure.
that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was such an interesting like behind like insight into the person making this thing, who was not just thinking about making a show but was thinking about like, oh, I'm creating an ecosystem that will outlive me, basically. I mean, I know that's not entirely your
Yeah.
point in what you're doing, but it seems like there's something in that there that you're interested in. One interest in the kind of content you make on YouTube is that it creates this thing that's bigger than what gets published.
Yes, I think the build of the body of work, it does feel like a body of work, and something like the treadmill version of Instagram, it can feel that way. But it, like, if someone asks me a question, I get people asking me questions all the time, reaching out, and if it's something I made a video about, I can just send them a quick link to it. I mean, it is, and I what I love about this, teaching music, teaching guitar lessons, is that it's totally like it's it's not a tech review. It's gonna be equally valuable 20 years from now. Like
Right.
talking about a music theory analysis or technique or something like that. It's like it's totally evergreen, as they say. But
Well,
yeah,
not in the metaverse.
is it not in the metaverse? I feel like you could sit down in the metaverse and then they'll have like a wall projection of like two-dimensional videos that you there'll be little theaters where you watch
Yeah, you
old.
got me. Right. Um, I wanna kind of pivot into how all this kind of fits into your traditional teaching, what your kind of mix of how you spend your time these days is. You still teach in-person students or remote one-on-one students, I guess I should say. Like, how does that fit with the kinds of things you do that are more for a broad audience, the kinds of things you do? Probably, I imagine you still play your own music and that fits into your time. Like, how does your time split up between those kinds of different things that you do related to music or related to your practice?
Yeah, as far as teaching private students goes, just to comment on that and how different it is from teaching to a broad audience. Oh my gosh, it couldn't be more different. It's great, I've been teaching private lessons. I started teaching about 20 years ago, private lessons, and got quite comfortable with it over time, and it's a rewarding, amazing experience. And I got really good at what you need to do for private lessons, which is listening, asking questions, helping them, go a direction they want to go, giving feedback, all of these things that actually you can't do at all when creating a video for, a huge group of people. So with private lessons, I was able to take the variety of things that I've always been interested in and really, really, really help somebody with it, right? So I was teaching classical lessons, and then right after that, I might have a jazz student who is, one person is like 100% classical, they see me as their classical teacher. Next student, 100% jazz, they see me as their jazz teacher. Somebody else doing, helping them with arranging their songwriting into, producing it in the recording software. And so there were like these little micro, super focused teaching sessions. And with that experience, I felt like, yeah, I can start posting some of this teaching stuff online. And as soon as I started doing it, I was like, oh, this is really tricky. And there's, I mentioned it earlier that I still feel scattered, and I appreciate you saying that it doesn't seem that way from the outside. um I think internally I'm still just like, this is really hard to have one lesson speak to a bunch of people, where what I've gotten so used to is asking one person, how can I help you?
What's the
And so,
difference?
um, the difference is that I'm worried about overall, um, having it seem scattered, I guess, having it feel like, okay, well, maybe this video is right for any video or any lesson or any topic is going to be right for somebody, but then the person who just watched a different video and sees this one is like, oh wait, this is not, my teacher after all. So it's totally in my head stuff that really probably no one else cares about. But I think, you're asking about social media, and you're, doing a podcast and stuff like that. I think it's valid stuff to work through, that you're really thinking, who is my audience? And I think that's what it is. When I'm teaching one-on-one, my audience is very clear. It's one person that I can say, hey, what's your main, concern, question, issue? How's practicing going? What are you inspired by? How can I help you the best I can possibly help you right now? And then do that for them. And then, with the whole like, who is my audience thing, that really shifts. Right now, I'm certainly focused on every single video. I'm like, okay, for the right person, this video is going to be great. Maybe that's all there is to it. Maybe that's all it needs to be. And that over time, there's such a variety of things that's that's okay. So it's, again, it's all internal stuff that is, which is why the consistency matters so much. And I would say that to anybody out there, as a musician, as a, if you're trying to do social media in any way or whatever, I think just um, starting way before you're ready. Same with like, write a song, same with trying to go perform, whatever. And you hear that advice, all over the place, but man, it's so true. Just to go for it, because it's not going to get sorted out without going for it. I don't know if that answers your question, but
It does. It totally does. I mean, it was a leading question. I
yeah,
know, I understand that it's very different. Like
yeah.
the
And I
to
didn't answer. I didn't address the part we asked about just my time in general.
oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that was just the difference of uh,
on
private
purpose
teaching
or
versus,
not?
what's that?
On purpose didn't answer it or not?
No, I didn't. I just forgot to get around to it because I got so into that.
Oh yeah.
The difference between teaching YouTube and teaching private lessons. So I'm still teaching some private lessons, but not as much as I was before, because I have courses that I'm selling, and I have the audience growing on YouTube, and that's starting to supplement things, and so I'm able to cut down a little bit, definitely still doing some of it, and I think it would be weird to not do it because it's very inspiring. So the right amount of it is kind of what I've been looking for, and for a while I was doing a ton of it because it was how I was exclusively making my living. But now it's nice to have more of a variety of things, and because I do have a little more of that leeway now too, the kind of artistic creativity crisis comes back up, as maybe it'll always be there, but I love just practicing, and I try to have my practicing focus towards some kind of outlet. For the last few years, my outlet has been the YouTube channel, so I'm like, oh, I get to demonstrate this thing, so I'll use it on the YouTube channel. But I'm starting to get some I'm starting to feel it bubbling up, that I'm like, okay, I need something, even more than this, which is probably going to start to be some posts that are exclusively, some videos that are just like performance videos, just actual arrangements, or exclusively that. And then I can teach lessons based on how I prepared for that performance or something like that.
I feel like
So
there's probably a
trying
lot of
to
people
kind of
that,
define it all. Yeah.
I feel like there's probably a lot of people that follow you on YouTube that would be very excited to hear you doing that. Just see you, like, because there's this weird um, thing that happens with celebrity, and celebrity meaning just like somebody that is known to many people, not necessarily like a actor or something.
Famous, yeah, right.
Yeah. But some that you feel like you're friends with them, and so like if
Mm.
you watch a lot of somebody's videos on YouTube, and all of a sudden they post a new one, you're like, oh sweet, my friend just came to visit. It's like it's almost like somebody knocked on your door. Um, with these relationships, they're strange. I think our brains are just not wired to have that concept.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with anything I follow, and or podcasts or whatever. It feels, you really do kind of fall in love with the person or the personality, or yeah, absolutely. And it's very odd to feel like they don't know me at all. They don't know me at all. This is one way, but it's still very comforting. And
It's wacky.
I think that really shows when some shows or podcasts or YouTube channels, when they transition into having other people start to be the main voice. There's this feeling of like, oh, I'm not.
Where's my
Even
friend?
if the like material is just the same stuff and like it's great and everything, you're just like, this is not my person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Um, I had somewhere where I wanted to go,
Yeah, no
um,
worries.
but I don't remember it anymore.
Was it?
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh,
Was
yes. Okay, now I know exactly what I wanted to ask you about. You were talking about your as your kind of online stuff is taken off, your courses, your YouTube stuff. You are kind of trimming how much in-person stuff you're doing. How much of that was kickstarted or not by 2020? What happened in March? So uh, I don't know if you've heard. There's this awful. Uh,
I am such a homebody that is the kind of thing that like my girlfriend and I joke about, like that I haven't even heard of what's going on in the world. But
right. You should sit down. Hold on. Just there's this awful virus that's happening.
wait, what? I've just
Yeah.
been practicing in my room this whole time. No,
Yeah.
um,
Like,
yeah.
had you already
So
started your
I
transition
started
at
it
that time?
right before. Like I had been wanting to I'd been wanting to start putting out lesson videos for a long time, because I was, and so probably 5 years in my head before I started doing it. So 2019 in December was my first YouTube video, and I've done every week since. So what
Oh my
was it?
gosh.
It was like 2 months after that the pandemic hit. 2 months to,
Yeah.
um, and so I can't speak to how it, I do hear that for a lot of people who already had established online stuff going on, that that their traffic increased, and their because everyone's at home watching things and stuff like that. For me, it was just it was the beginning. I had no one. I had no one. Even at the beginning, it's not like the pandemic helped. Maybe it helped, I don't know, but I would have a month where like 8 views on my video, or on my whole channel or something like that. So,
Yeah.
there's always the phase. And I was just like, I just knew, I was like, this is going to work if I keep doing it. And
Man, that is incredible.
I think that's the
That is
case with
so
everything.
hard to have have just nothing happening and just say, well,
Right.
it's Thursday.
I just knew, and I think it comes with just, over time. I had a podcast many years ago that was like a project I poured my heart into. It was this podcast called Song Chamber, and it was this, it was my own kind of soul searching, trying to grow an audience, try to create. I was doing songwriting, talking about the music theory of it. Every episode, I would write a song and then talk about the process and talk about my, all that. And I
Oh,
did that
that's
for
cool.
it was really, really, it was really rewarding. I kind of overproduced it. I was really into, shows like This American Life and that at the time. And I did, totally on my own, basically that kind of style of production. And it was
Sure.
completely unsustainable. And I gave up on it before it really kicked in. And so when I started this thing, I was like, I'm not going to make that same mistake. I'm going to, the consistency matters most. And I know, like, there was no doubt in my mind that it'll work if I keep doing it. And I think that's the case for everything with everybody. It's not about if you have what it takes. It's not about, because if you're going to keep going, you're going to figure it out. But of course, that sounds easier than it is, because, and this is very relevant for when I'm teaching and stuff too. Like, if someone just keeps trying and practicing and playing, they're going to be able to play guitar in whatever capacity they dreamed of, and or goes with anything else too. And so the biggest challenge is not, can I do this? It's more like, should I do this? Is this the right thing? Is this how I want to spend my days? Is this how I want to spend my time? I know went into the whole, I have a little bit of a motivational speaker side of me, but
That's
which,
fantastic. I mean, that's
like I
one of
said,
the things I
my
love
life.
in your I feel like it just in jumping around through your videos, like you're pushing effective practice is such a or what is the actual like term that you use? I forget.
Deliberate practice.
Deliberate practice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's, if anything, that's what I've kind of started to be like, man, maybe that's the center of it all, right? Because then I can talk about anything, and talk about how we show up for practicing deliberately with it. So there's through lines for sure, even if I'm switching styles or topics in other ways. Yeah, for sure. Um, but but yeah, as far as I guess you were asking about the pandemic, but um, th- that made me think of, there's a little bit of a different beginning before I even started my YouTube channel, which is that I was teaching private lessons, and someone came to me for some lessons, who already was they had a YouTube channel that was doing well, and they were making courses, and they said, hey, do you want to team up with us? We have an audience. If you make a course for us, we can team up and split it 50-50. You make a course on whatever you want. We can get it in front of our audience. And so I teamed up with them, and I made 5 courses. And so I did a lot, figured out the video production element of it and all that stuff. So 5 courses, a huge amount of work. I mean, making a course, crazy amount of work. And so I did that before even being on YouTube or anything. And then when I, through that process, I realized that I wanted to do, have my own audience and do it on my own. So I finished off the contract for them, and then started my own thing. So it
did that
was,
go well?
the what the
The
course
course you
system.
did for the other people?
Yeah, it did. It was a really good experience. It was a learning experience. I just realized how much, having totally my own domain was important to me,
Yeah.
because I just have my own, philosophies on teaching and everything, and I just wanted to have my own audience and my own, totally my own courses and stuff like that. But it was a very important stepping stone towards what I'm doing now and what I wanted to end up doing. So it was a really valuable process, and I learned a lot from them. But we were doing things just slightly differently, than I would do myself. So um, I think it's similar to, if you're in a band with someone and you have slight creative differences for just the sound you want. That's when people go do a solo project.
Yeah. Well, it's a
Yeah,
crazy world that like the technical I mean, there are things where this is not true, but for a lot of this kind of stuff that you would want to do in the world, you can probably figure it out. Whereas before you'd have to have, 8 secretaries and,
yeah.
whatever. I don't know what you would do with 8 secretaries. Well, I know what they did.
if I had any amount of a team of people right now, I would have so many things for them. I'd be like, oh, awesome, let's work, let's do these big projects. I think the hardest thing, and you probably feel, I mean, I'm sure everybody feels the same way. It's just like the amount of ideas and inspiration we have for various things we could do. I mean, the idea and the inspiration is this one little thing, and then the work it takes to actually execute it and or get it off the ground in the first place and do it consistently for a while is like kind of an all-consuming effort. So it's just tricky when in one day a human will have 100 ideas that they're like, that could be a cool thing. So it really comes down to, do I actually, is this gonna be in alignment with who I am?
Yeah.
I'm sure here you are doing a podcast. It's like the same thing. Like, it's easy to think a podcast would be cool, but then you gotta, like, takes showing up for it.
Well, and then yeah, I don't know if you talk about the kinds of things that you're trying to do or what you're into with other people around you. But I just know I hear myself as I'm talking about ideas with like my wife or somebody else, and I'm just like, I told you the opposite of this 2 days ago.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like there's a lot of keeping that path and that consistency is real hard, and I don't know,
hard.
at least for me. And so it's, yeah, as you say, it's not like I think a lot of times there are people who think that having ideas is the hard part, but it's actually like choosing and sticking to
Yeah,
a few ideas,
yeah,
in my experience, is like the tough thing.
100% agree. Yeah, yeah. I think ideas are not only the easy part; it's like the automatic part. Everyone's going to have an idea, and
Yeah.
I think it's like a radar that gets honed over time, though, because like, you know how sometimes you have an idea and you're like, that would be cool if someone did that, or that would be cool if that existed. It's a different feeling when you feel like this is something I'm pulled to do. The way I try to frame it in my mind is I start with how I would see myself like years from now, even at any given time. How do I want to be, like, what would a day-to-day spending my time be like? Okay, then what could allow me to get to that point? Because if you start with like, this thing would be cool to exist, you don't really think about, what does that mean I'm going to actually be doing when I wake up and spending time on? And if it's a lot of effort put into something that really you're not thriving in the actual execution of, then it's not going to work out. But might take a few of those to realize it, I think, too. So
Man, that is so true.
for me, it's as much as I'm still working on finding my voice and outlet. I'm grateful for having the outlet I do, which is the teaching channel, and that's never going to stop. And I'm only going to, I feel like it's the thing. I feel like it's something that, at least right now, that I will do a weekly video for the rest of my life. Like, that's how I feel about it. Like, I'm not going to stop doing that, and I want to just fit in my other endeavors into it. So I'm like, what can be a unified thing to be doing that lines up with how I want to spend my time, which is practicing, playing, creating, writing, composing, recording. And then if teaching is part of that, then it kind of hopefully is a organic version of kind of sharing what I want to do anyway. I'm not quite at the kind of organic flow state of that yet, because it's still 2 years in. It's still newish to me enough that it's not, I don't feel like I can just turn on the camera and share a thing that I was, doing. I'd like to get to that point, with a little bit of outlining and stuff, but sometimes it's quite a contrived experience to be like, how am I gonna get this video? What's it gonna be? Which is good, because sometimes they turn out great that way, and that's fine. But anyway, just a little bit of what I'm hoping to go towards more.
Man, from the outside, it looks like you have it together. So great. And
Well, I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Anyway,
Go ahead,
well,
sir.
we should probably end it there. Thank you so much for talking with me. I really, I don't know, I really had a great time uh, for the hour, and
Likewise.
hope to keep in touch.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I hope it's in line with what you were hoping to get out of it, and yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yeah, man. Yeah, there were a couple things I wanted to get to, such as your awesome no scrubs video. Like,
Yeah, well, thanks for mentioning it.
solid A plus. I just sometimes you watch something and you are just smiling within 10 seconds, and I was locked in for that. And I don't know. I just love
That's
watching you
a
play.
great example. That's a great example of like, if I can merge, what I'm putting out there for the teaching channel with something that entertains me as much as that, then I'd be just thrilled. And, maybe it won't be that 100% of the time, but I'm glad you brought that up, because that was just same with me. I was like laughing when I came up with it. I was sitting on the couch, just like starting to do that walking bass lines over scrubs. I was like, this is so awesome. I got to do a video on it. So
It was awesome. There's like so much joy there, and it was just I don't know. You're putting great vibes out into the world.
thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, you are too. This is awesome conversation, and just total positive experience. And yeah, thanks so much.